At COP28, the UAE placed a $30 billion bet on the future of climate investing.
The vision was there and the ambition was there, but that wasn't being reflected in real-world solutions.
Altérra was born, a climate investment fund built to test a highly debated proposition that commercial returns and climate impact can go hand in hand. Its target, mobilize $250 billion by 2030. Nearly 3 years on, we're finding out how much of that ambition has become reality.
Today, I can tell you, I'm extremely confident that we'll hit that target.
Nearly 3 years after launch, Altérra says its portfolio now spans more than 30 investments across more than 40 countries and 5 continents. The Abu Dhabi-based fund is now one of the world's largest private climate investment vehicles, investing through and alongside global asset managers. Its mandate spans 4 areas: energy transition, industrial decarbonization, climate technology, and sustainable living. That's everything from renewable power in India to aviation software in the US. But for all of that breadth, energy is the story. The fund's latest impact report puts the energy transition at 80% of its exposure. I met CEO Majid Al Suwaidi at Altérra's headquarters. Majid, what makes Altérra different to your typical private equity firm?
The key difference is that we're a blended vehicle in the sense that we bring the private sector and government together. When we were at COP28, we felt that it was very important to bring different actors to the climate finance discussion. And each of them have different objectives or goals, but what we're trying to show is that we can align those objectives and we can make money doing it.
How are people thinking about Abu Dhabi taking the lead in climate investing?
I think it's been embraced by everyone that I've met. I think that for a long time, people have really wanted to see a leader take that step. And that's what Altérra, in essence, does. It takes that first step, and then that begets more capital, and that confidence begets more capital. And that first mover effect is what Abu Dhabi, what the UAE, and what Altérra is achieving today.
At launch, Altérra committed $6.5 billion across 6 fund strategies with Brookfield, BlackRock, and TPG. It has since added new partners and begun making direct co-investments in companies and projects. How much of that $30 billion has been deployed into live deals and how much is left waiting in the wings?
We have invested about 6.5 committed today of that 30 billion. We started out with 3 of the largest institutional investors in Brookfield, TPG, and BlackRock. We've added KKR, CIP, to that roster of partners. So as you can see, the largest players in the world. And that was really key to what we wanted to do. Actually, when we started, we were told that we wouldn't be able to mobilize capital in a big way, particularly to the global south. But we've seen that we've been able to do that, and we've shown by taking that leadership that we can do it. Our fund is broken down into acceleration, transformation, and now we recently launched our own fund, Opportunity. Acceleration is our global fund that can invest anywhere in the world, and transformation is our global south commitment. With our acceleration fund, we've mobilized about 9 times our capital, and with our transformation fund, we've mobilized almost 5 times, and we continue to raise. So as you can tell, we've been phenomenally successful so far, way outstripping our expectations in the beginning.
Wow. So take a step back for me, because the North Star here, as I understand it, is $250 billion by 2030. How close are you?
That estimate was something we estimated in the beginning, and it was a sort of moderate target that we felt it was a stretch, but that we could achieve it. And today I can tell you, I'm extremely confident that we'll hit that target by 2030. We've been really pleasantly surprised with our mobilization ability. Why is it important? It was important as a measure because what we wanted to prove was that we could be commercial, that we could drive the private sector to invest in these spaces. And that's what so far we've been able to do.
So let's talk about the strategy then. How are you sourcing and evaluating opportunities today?
We're lucky that we're almost like a hub in a giant wheel. And all of the climate relevant investments that are happening today tend to end up on our doorstep, which means that we can cherry pick from the best of the deals.
It's a good problem to have.
It really is. And we knew that there was this mismatch going on. And what we do is we kind of fit in that middle, matching the capital with the deal flow and really picking out quality deals, because it's very important to us that credibility is what we will deliver over time, that people will feel confident that they can invest, generate good returns, and that they will then come back and invest again.
Abu Dhabi's Altérra is one of the world's largest climate investment funds, and its deal-making has accelerated. Alongside General Atlantic, it backed Wireless Logic, a connectivity company linking EV chargers, smart meters, and industrial equipment. It has also committed to KKR's climate strategy, spanning renewables, battery storage, and electrification. And with I2 Capital, it invested in Inkia Energy, Peru's largest independent power producer, and Altérra's first direct investment in Latin America. But investing at that scale means deciding which deals make the cut. Walk me through how a deal actually happens here.
For us, it's particularly unique because, of course, we have an investment team and a climate impact team that have to work together, and we spend a lot of time trying to integrate these two processes. So when a deal first comes in, we do a very quick first pass. How is this clearly a climate impactful deal? And then we take it through a more detailed process where we apply our climate impact framework. So we'll look at every aspect of the project, understanding what would be the emissions impact, what would be the mobilization factor that we would achieve, what would be the impact on the community or the country's economy itself. And then we have these great partners who help us to ensure that we're making really sound financial decisions. And so it's very unique how we meld these two things together. And so we have a very talented team of people who specialize in these types of investments, and that's what makes Altérra unique. That's our secret sauce.
That link between development and the energy transition is central to Altérra's push into the global south. Research published by the fund says those markets attract just 20% of global climate finance, leaving a $2 trillion annual climate investment gap. But it argues roughly a third of that, or about $700 billion a year, is already investable or close to it. The challenge, convincing institutional investors to look past risks like currency volatility, political uncertainty, and limited market data.
We believe that there is a perception issue around investing in the global south, that it's riskier or that it's more challenging. But you know, the UAE is a global south country. We're a country that's been investing in our part of the world for decades, since we started. We've had lots of experience in investing in Asia, in India, in Africa, and we'd like to do more in LATAM. What we see is that if you're investing in these markets, you can generate fantastic return if you make the smart choices, but you can achieve great impact as well.
Let's talk about AI. We're seeing this unprecedented surge in global power demand driven by AI and data centers. Big tech clearly scrambling right now for clean baseload power. So as a climate investor, how are you viewing the AI boom?
That energy demand should be and can be as clean as possible. And so that story is going to be that energy transition. What are the things that they think a lot about? They think a lot about cooling. They think about efficiency. They think about how they can do more for less power. These are all great stories for a climate fund, right? But you know, Dan, we've turned down a lot of deals. I've had many, many data center deals sent to me. And I have said, well, what's the addition that we bring? And it can't just be that it's a clean data center. There needs to be something more to the story. And so we're really looking very hard at that. But then there's also how to invest in the technology itself. What can that do in terms of improving energy efficiency, developing these new materials? So we think about it from that perspective.
It's been a challenging year for the Middle East, and 2026 has brought a whole variety of challenges, in particular the war with Iran. How do you think that is shaping investment decisions from the Middle East and the appetite to do business in this part of the world?
I think that what has really struck me has been how partners have doubled down on the UAE. I think that this really shows how the UAE has moved from where we were in the past, where we were sort of subject to macro or regional effects. And I think that that reflects my experience growing up here in the UAE, is that every crisis that we've gone through, the UAE has always come out stronger, faster, better, and more efficient. I have not seen any difference in the partners, the investors. They're all here today. They're all working business as usual. And that's really a testament to how well our government has prepared and is moving forward. I see that continuing to grow. As at Altérra, because we are this largest climate fund investor, we've seen many, many GPs, fund managers in our space come and set up here at ADGM because they want to support us, they want to work with us. So I feel optimistic about the UAE. I think we're going to go from strength to strength because that has been our track record.
On that note then, what would you say is the biggest challenge that Altérra will face in the coming years?
We're still a young organization. We still have a lot of room to grow. As you know, every organization has to develop its strategy and has to grow. So I think our biggest challenge is going to see how do we take our strategy, our climate impact framework, and how do we evolve that and grow that into something that is global. I would love in 2030 for us to do this again and for me to say that the way we invest today is not seen as something that is different, but that it is the approach to investing. That we are taking decisions about companies, about projects that make sense for the investor and that they're part of this journey with us. And there's no doubt that that will be a challenge and that we'll learn lessons along the way. But I feel very fortunate that we have a really smart team and that we have a lot of great partners here in the system in the UAE and that we're going to be able to do that and tackle those challenges.
Walk me through how your diplomatic experience also helps what you do today as well. You've been ambassador, you've been a consul general in New York, you led COP28 here in the UAE. So how does that background in high-level diplomacy help you when you're in the boardrooms or meeting with executives from these big Wall Street firms?
I have to say when I started, it was a bit intimidating, right? You walk in and you see these leaders, like, the partners we work with are some of the biggest institutions in the world. We work with Larry Fink, we work with Bruce Flatt. You have Jim over at TPG. These are really inspiring, great people to be able to learn from, to work alongside, to see how they work. And every day is like school for me. I love it. I love every day when I come to work and I learn something new. And there's no school like the UN. And there's definitely no school like the UNFCCC, like the climate change negotiations, which are so complicated and so challenging. But what they teach you is that to be able to deliver successful solutions, you have to bring people together and you have to be able to have a broad knowledge of a lot of complicated issues. And trying to solve for those complicated issues means that you need to look at both sides of the story. You need to have empathy. You need to be able to learn from others, hear what are their concerns and their challenges, and try to address them. And I think that those skills are transferable to the space that I'm in today. At the end of the day, Dan, I have a background as a geologist. I started out my career in oil and gas. I'm fundamentally driven as a geologist, as an engineer. I didn't come to diplomacy in a traditional way either. And I've always taken a scientific approach to the challenges that I face. How can I create good processes? How can I create an understanding of risk and opportunity? And then how can I address those risks and take advantage of those opportunities? And those are transferable skills, I think, in any workspace.
When we sit down in the next 10 years, what do you hope Altérra becomes?
I would really like to see Altérra be one of the largest asset managers in the world that people continue to look at as the gold standard when it comes to asset management, responsible, impactful asset management. And I believe we can get there.